by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada in the year 1976. He has joined ISKCON GBC in the year 2000 and served as chairman for GBC in year 2014 and 2015. Prabhuji is also globally known for his various seminars and training programs, mostly on the communications courses. He is also International Director of Communication of ISKCON. He has been interviewed by various agencies like BBC, Fox News, ABC, and also the Washington Post. And Prabhuji is serving the whole ISKCON movement, the movement of Prabhupada, with his whole family, with his beloved wife and also the children. He is serving all his days for the service of Prabhupada. So I request all the devotees of Sreyas to unmute yourself and loudly chant 3 times Hari Bol for welcoming His Grace Anuttama Das Prabhu. So Hari Bol. Okay. So thank you very much, Prabhu, for coming. And now the screen is all yours, Prabhu. You can start the session. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you very much for inviting me to be with you. I'm very, very honored to do that. I'll just mention one thing when you talk about different speakers, especially me coming as pure devotees. You know, Prabhupada described that actually anyone that takes up this process of Krishna consciousness is a pure devotee because we're on the pure path. We're on the path of purity, the path that will awaken our purity. So we may be different levels of that path, and it's very hard. Krishna knows where we are in terms of our progress. We can't really evaluate one another. We know we should serve one another. That we know for sure. But as for myself, I have a long ways to go in my Krishna consciousness, but I have complete faith that if I continue taking shelter of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna and Srila Prabhupada and Prabhupada's society, that one day I will awaken that level of purity. Like Prabhupada said, like if you have a mango, a ripe mango is the same as an unripe mango. But at the same time, we wait for that day that it becomes completely manifest in its pure state, in its ripe state. So we're like that. As long as we stay connected to the process of Krishna consciousness, despite whatever obstacles or difficulties may be there at this point in time, we'll all will become a ripened fruit or a pure devotee. That success is guaranteed. So I want to thank all of you, all of the devotees, for organizing this program. Tirupati is a very, very special place for me. I went there as a young devotee. Those stories can talk about another time. I don't want to get into too much detail, but I visited the Tirupati temple many, many times. It's a beautiful temple. It's a wonderful community. I love to go have the darshan of Lord Balaji. I've walked up the mountain just one time. Hopefully I can do it a few more times in the future. But this wonderful, wonderful, very, very special place in my heart. Some of you know this, that see me when I visit Tirupati. Perhaps the most favorite place in the entire world for me to chant japa is on the roof of the meeting rooms, of the guest house. I like to go up there after Mangal Artik and watch the lights from the Tirumala hill and chant japa and see the sun coming up and the birds begin to fly, and it's a beautiful, wonderful, wonderful place. So Tirupati is very special to me, and in the same way, all of you are very special to me because you're all devotees of Tirupati Dham. So therefore, you are also very, very special. And I feel myself very fortunate to be with you today. And I understand primarily this is a men's group. I can't see everybody's faces. I just see a few of you across the top. I understand this is a men's group, primarily young men, which means by definition, I shouldn't be here. So I'm very grateful that you broke the rules to allow me to be here with you today. I wanted primarily direct my comments towards this group, as I understand it, of young men. The things I'm going to be talking about, I think in one sense apply to everyone, old men as well as young men, women as well as men. But I want to primarily direct my comments towards young men and the particular opportunities that are there at this stage of life and the way we need to think about things in this stage of life. Again, it's consistent in other stages, but I think it's particularly significant for all of you. So I was going to begin by reading a very famous verse. You probably read this and studied this many, many times. chapter 3, Karma Yoga, text 21. Okay? Yad yada charati shreshtas tat tat eva taro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokas tad anuvartate. Just to read the English translation. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So those are Krishna's words. Here's Prabhupada's purport. People in general always require a leader who can teach the public by practical behavior. A leader cannot teach the public to stop smoking if he himself smokes. I think it's coming up on the screen there. Wonderful. Lord Chaitanya said that a teacher should behave properly before he begins teaching. So in other words, if you want to teach, you have to also act properly. One who teaches in that way is called acharya, or the ideal teacher. Therefore, a teacher must follow the principles of Shastra, scripture, to teach the common man. Interesting, Prabhupada uses the word principles twice. A teacher must follow the principles of Shastra. In other words, we must understand Shastra deeply, not just this little piece, that little piece, but we understand the principles behind what's being taught. A teacher cannot manufacture rules against the principles of revealed scriptures. The revealed scriptures, like Manu Samhita and similar others, are considered the standard books to be followed by human society. Thus, the leader's teaching should be based, again, he says, on the principles of such standard shastras. One who desires to improve himself must follow the standard rules as they are practiced by great teachers. Another important point. The Srimad Bhagavatam also affirms that one should follow in the footsteps of great devotees, and that is the way of progress on the path of spiritual realization. So Krishna is saying it, the Bhagavatam also says it, and Prabhupada is also saying it. The king or the executive head of a state, the father, and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. All such natural leaders have a great responsibility. We're going to talk about responsibility to their dependents. Therefore, they must be conversant with the standard books of moral and spiritual codes. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Padashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gordavani Picharne Nirvasesha Shunyavadi Pashtataritarne Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So again, thank you for allowing me to be with you, and let's talk a little bit about this verse and some of the things we can learn from this. The title of my talk, and I apologize, I sent it in late. Some of you may not have seen it, but what was the idea of following the example of Srila Prabhupada, letting him be the acharya for all of us. Srila Prabhupada is explaining, Krishna is explaining, and Srila Prabhupada is confirming in his purport that all of us, we need role models. You know, the modern term is role models. And therefore, he's emphasizing the importance of Shastra, which teaches us about role models and gives us these principles of moral and spiritual behavior. He talks a lot about in this purport, understanding deeply what are the principles of those. So we need personal example, and then we also need the principles that are there. And he also emphasizes this point of understanding those principles as taught and applied by the great teachers. So this is very, very important that we all, Krishna is saying that whatever great men do, others follow. And Prabhupada is saying that means we follow in terms of the scripture, we follow in terms of individual leaders, and we understand what are the principles and how these things are practiced. So we also need and will follow leaders consciously or unconsciously. This is just the nature of the human being. And this is true today as it was in the time of the Bhagavad Gita and the time of Lord Chaitanya. It'll be true 500, 1,000 years going into the future. That today we look and see, well, how does this play out in real life? A lot of people like to say, you know, I'm my own man. I don't follow anybody. I don't want to follow the old traditions. The Shastra, okay, some people, You know, they just follow whatever the scripture says, but I'm an educated young man. I'm gonna make up my own mind like that. But those same people, they look at cricket stars as their role models. Some famous cricket star does some nonsense. They think, oh, I can also do some nonsense. Or they look to Bollywood movie stars, right? They look at the Bollywood stars. Oh, look, he's got all the girls. He smokes, he drinks, but still he's famous. He's wealthy. Maybe if I smoke and I drink, I'll become famous. I'll become wealthy. You know, and they look to the wealthy people. Who's the big industrialist? He made so much money. Maybe he lied. Maybe he cheated. But either way, he made a lot of money. Or someone who's very handsome, they want to follow him. This is the natural psychology. These attractive qualities. Someone who's a big cricket star, a movie star, wealthy, beautiful, rich, so many ways. People follow them. We look to these people. They become the role models. And we see this, the modern society so much promotes this in the newspapers and the magazines, online. They're full of photographs and stories and gossip all about these people, isn't it? They're so popular. Why are they so popular? Because everyone looks to them as role models. Everyone wants to look like them, right? Some new star comes out with a new haircut, new hairstyle, and in a few days you see all the teenagers especially, you know, they're so impressionable, and they're all wearing the same style, right? Some song comes out that somebody's singing, and you know, one day nobody's heard of it. Within 2 weeks, everybody's walking on the street just singing that song, isn't it? Why is that? Because they're taking those people as role models, as leaders, consciously or unconsciously. They're saying, this is my leader, and I want to follow their footsteps. So myself, all of you, the society, we all follow different leaders and different role models. So what I'd like to talk about today, present to all of you, particularly in this context of being young men, is understanding that you have a choice who you choose to follow and what you choose to follow and what type of role models you use to choose. And this is a very, very important, perhaps the most important decision in your lives. Who will I choose to follow? Because again, we may say we're independent, but we're not. You know, you like in my country, some people choose to follow the conservative media. Some people choose to follow the more liberal media, and their minds are influenced by that. The same way we follow certain role models of different people. Our minds are influenced and our lives are influenced. And what's important is to realize we have that choice and to use that choice properly. There's a very famous leadership guru. He passed away a few years ago. Some of you may recognize the name. His name was Stephen Covey. He wrote many books. One of them, his most famous was called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the points that he makes in that book is that all of us as individuals, we are responsible. Prabhupada actually uses that same word in his purport. He talks about there's a great responsibility. We all have a great responsibility. Teachers have responsibility, leaders have responsibility. So also as individuals, we have great responsibility, which means we are able, if you break the word up, responsible, we are able to respond according to our choice. We are able to respond. We can respond in different ways, isn't it? Something negative happens, and we have the power to get angry, to become bitter, to blame others, and we have the power to say, oh, that was a mistake that was made. Maybe I made it, and I should learn from that or go forward. Or, okay, some negative thing happened. What can I learn from it? I'm not going to become overly affected by it. We have the power in the moment to make that decision. And this is important because, again, I'm speaking to an audience of young men. Men have power. Women also have power, a little different in some ways. Some ways it's the same. But particularly men, you know, we have a picture of my son. He's 42 years old now, but we have a picture of my son when he was about 6 years old. And he's dressed up with a turban, and he's got a crown, and he's got a little friend with him who's holding a flute, and he's holding a little cardboard plow. And, you know, both of them are kind of standing there like this, you know, I'm Balaram, I'm strong, I'm powerful. So we see that with little boys and men throughout our lives. Again, women is there too, but we're talking to men here in particular. Power is a big deal for us. And we are powerful. Even physically, they talk about men generally, not all, but generally, you know, even like the power of the men, the upper half of our bodies, we got bigger chests, we got bigger arms. Generally, men are, they say something like about 1/3 more strong. The average man is 1/3 more strong physically than women are. Not all. You know, there's some women that could outrun me in a minute and arm wrestle me and make me look foolish. But generally, men have a little more power. So we can use that power, or we can what? Abuse that power, isn't it? And we see the world is full of men. Again, we're talking about men here, abusing their power. Their political power, their spiritual power, their intellectual power, their materialistic monetary power. So we have power and we have a choice. And the role models that we choose to follow, the same way we have a choice what role models we follow, they will greatly influence the other choices that we make. So we have to be aware of this, how people are influencing me. We have a choice. We can follow leaders or role models who are uplifting, people who are self-disciplined, people who are caring, people who are servant leaders, or we can choose role models who are one way or the other going to have a degrading influence, like uplifting influences or degrading influence. Of course, it's not so, you know, polarized. It's not just, you know, one side or the other. There's nuances, but the principle of it, I think you can understand. There's uplifting and there's down pushing or degrading. So do we follow people who are self-disciplined, caring, servant leaders, or do we choose to follow people who are self-absorbed, who are greedy, who are angry, who are divisive, and even exploitative? What's our choice? If we look to the Shastra, we look to Ram Leela, the great personality of Bibhishan comes to my mind. Bibhishan had a choice. I can serve Ravan or I can serve Ram. And at the critical moment, he made the right choice. Now, if you think about it, there's a lot of perks to stick with Ravan. Ravan is very powerful. Ravan's got a big army. Ravan himself is, you know, almost, I mean, is immeasurable powers from the materialistic perspective. You know, what as they say, you know, wine, women, and power, that's with this guy. Ravan's got it all. Okay, or had a choice, he could go with Ram. Well, what's Ram's status? Well, he lives in the forest. He's got an army. Well, who is it? He's got an army full of monkeys. Really? His own wife was stolen from him. So, externally speaking, it's kind of a clear choice. Ravan. He's got everything going for him. But Bibhishan took the time to consider the real alternatives: uplifting, degrading, righteous or selfish, spiritually based or materially overwhelmed. And we have similar choice to make. Vidura, another example, there's so many, there's probably hundreds of examples we could find, but Vidura also came to my mind. Vidura made a choice. Who do I follow? He's there in the palace of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, and he just basically said, to use a modern term, I'm out of here. It reached a point, he just said, I'm leaving. It's gone too far. I've tried to help, but it's gone too far. So he abandoned the world of comfort and he took up the path of righteousness. Of course, that doesn't mean just, we'll talk about this more later, doesn't mean necessarily all of us and it won't mean for most of us, making the right choice doesn't mean we abandon our responsibilities or our families or don't use our talents in the society. That's not it. We're talking now about the conscious choice of who we follow, who's our role models, okay? So we also, and all of you also have the power and the ability to make these choices. Who is going to be my leaders, what leaders do I choose, and who are going to be my role models? In whose footsteps will I follow? And we all know there's a lot of peer pressure, especially in the world today, more and more, to follow materialistic people, to follow the cricket stars, to follow the Bollywood stars, to follow the people that have all the, the women and everybody else kind of, falling at their feet and worshiping them. And, you see pictures, I know like Indian newspapers, especially when I travel to India, I mean, they had whole gossip sections and, you're trying to read the news and there's 2 pages of, some Bollywood guy with he's got his fancy jacket and the lights are flashing and all the, 6 beautiful women standing, looking at him adoringly. The fact is they're models. They paid him to do that. They don't like this guy. But they make it look like, he's such a successful person, materially speaking. So we have this choice and we need to understand there's a lot of peer pressure. And one of the most important things we can do is to use our power, to use our ability to respond, to say no to negative influences and to say yes to the positive influences. Even when it's difficult, even when everyone else is going the other way, even when people criticize me and they even say even tell me or you're a fool. You're a fool for making this choice. Just imagine when Babishan is crossing the lines, right? What are they saying? Babishan, are you crazy? Look at those monkeys over there. They don't even have any weapons. They've got stones and sticks and trees. Look at Ravan's power. He's got the greatest kingdom. Ram's got nothing. Nothing. He lives under the tree in the forest. He doesn't even have his queen. Are you crazy? That's peer pressure. Isn't it? That's peer pressure. I remember when I became a devotee, a lot of peer pressure. You're going to become a what? You want to practice Hare Krishna? Those people don't drink? Those people don't smoke? I mean, veggies, nice. Non-veg, okay, yes. It's, non-meat, whatever, it's okay. But, once in a while, what is the problem? We all hear these things. That's peer pressure. That's peer pressure. And we have a choice. No, thank you. I prefer to do this. Hey, have a drink. No, that's okay. I'm going to some business meeting or something. No, say, I'll have some water. Thank you. I'll have some 7-Up, Limpka, some thumbs up as caffeine. I think that's not good. But, we have the ability to make choices, even in the small decisions. So I would suggest that all of us here deeply consider, and some of us may think, well, I've already made that choice. I would suggest we go deeper in our consideration and in our choice, and that we look to Srila Prabhupada to be that role model and that leader that we want to follow. And of course, in that line in Prabhupada, it's those people that follow Prabhupada as well. But particularly, I want to talk about Srila Prabhupada. And I want to touch on 3 primary reasons why I advocate all of us should look to Prabhupada as our role model. And when we look to someone as our role model, that means we want to try to understand as much as we can about them. We want to look, just as Prabhupada mentions his purport, what are the principles behind what he did? How did he apply things in certain situations? Not that we just follow blindly, but we go very deeply and understand why did he do the things that he did? And how did he do it? How would he have applied things today, in today's world, and in my life? What guidance would he give there? So I want to touch upon 3 primary reasons, arguments I give to all of you intelligent young men. 3 arguments, 3 points I want to make about why we should choose Prabhupada as our primary role model. The first one is that Prabhupada is giving us a positive alternative and real hope. There's a lot of people in the world today that are hopeless. There's in many, many countries, I don't know the statistics in India, but in many countries, there's more mental health issues than ever before. Many, many people are feeling depressed. They're feeling powerless in many, many ways. They're feeling isolated. I know last time I was in India, I saw some newspaper articles. Those of us that visit or live in cities, you see these huge apartment complexes that are going up and big, big billboards, come to this place. And You know, you can look out your window and, you know, see a couple trees here or there. Same thing your grandmother had back in the village. But, you know, come into the city and you can be on the 35th floor and you can see down below, oh, there's a tree. There's a tree. Look at some greenery. And, you know, spend your money for whatever. I don't know how expensive these things are. 1 crore, 20 crores, whatever they are. So many lakhs. I don't know the details. But people are thinking, let's go to those places because then we'll be happy. But then I read an article that said a lot of the young people, mostly young people, say it's a very unhappy place to live. Why? Nobody knows each other. You live in a hallway, you know, apartment 1, apartment 2, apartment 20. Nobody knows each other. Maybe you say hello, good morning to somebody in the elevator. You go down the 34 floors. Good morning, how are you? I'm fine. And you get out. You come home at night. Good evening, how are you? I'm fine. And you get out. There's no sense of community. Right? I'm sure if you Google it, you know, community and Indian apartment, they're all complaining. They feel disconnected and isolated. You got a lot of money, you got a big apartment. So Prabhupada is offering us an alternative, a positive alternative with real hope and how we can have a better future for ourselves and for the world. It's a vision. Smart people understand that materialistic life, it's insufficient. There's a lot of perks. You know, having a nice car, it's really good in a lot of ways. Having one of those big apartments, it's really good in a lot of ways. Having money, you know, many ways it makes life more convenient. You know, being able to, you know, fly across the country or do so many things, or having a bigger office, you know, getting some prestige, getting the applause of the people in the office. You know, you've been named to be the assistant to the assistant to the assistant vice president. Before you were just the assistant to the assistant to the assistant to the assistant to vice president. Now you've been a raise. Now the assistant to the assistant to the assistant to the vice president. There's some nice things that come along with that. But honest people, smart people recognize it's nice, but it's not enough. There's something that's still lacking. There's something in my heart. I'm still feeling there's something still lacking. And one example came to mind as I was preparing for this class. I don't know if you know the name of this very famous star in America, and I think she's famous around the world. Her name is Beyonce. Anybody, does that name ring a bell? She's a big musician, very beautiful lady, well-known recording star. In America, probably considered the most beautiful woman and the most famous and wealthy of this time. To use a popular term, gorgeous. She's a gorgeous lady, okay? And so many men are thinking, millions of men, oh boy, if my wife looked like that, I'd be happy, isn't it? But the fact is, and they've come out publicly on that, I don't know if you know this, her husband was cheating on her. And they came out publicly and talked about how their marriage was traumatized and how they had to get counseling and how they tried to work their way through it, etc. And I heard that, I thought, how is this possible? I mean, 95% of the men in the world that know of her would say, wow, you know, at least materially speaking, she's not a great spiritual partner, I don't think. Maybe she is. But, you know, materially, physically, you know, she's rich, she's beautiful, etc. How could you want anything more? But the man that was married to her, in his mind, oh, I want something more. Some of you may have heard me tell this story when I was in Tirupati. There's a very famous family, the Rockefeller family. They're like kind of the Bill Gates or the Jeff Bezos, whatever, who owns Amazon today. And, you know, some of the big wealthy families in India. And there's so many wealthy families there. He was asked, the founding member of this big Rockefeller family was asked one time at kind of the zenith of his wealth and his power. He was asked, how much money is enough, Mr. Rockefeller? How much money is enough? You have so much. You control most of the oil. You control the refineries. You control the gas stations. Later, the government had to step in and break up. He had a monopoly on these things. I don't know if that was before or after the statement, but either way, immensely wealthy and powerful man. They asked him, how much money is enough? He thought about it. He said, just a little bit more. So on Monday, you've got $1 billion. Oh, I need a little more. Tuesday, you've got $2 billion. How much you need? Just a little more. Wednesday, just a little more. The day you die, just a little bit more. So Prabhupada's given us an alternative to that. You know, the Gita explains that the desires for material gratification, they're never satisfied. Krishna explains lust, you know, the material desire, it burns like fire. You have a little fire, it's burning up the fuel. You think, oh, let me put more wood. What happens? It gets bigger. Oh, this fire is eating all the wood. Let me satisfy it. I'll give it more wood. It gets bigger and hotter. That's the analogy Krishna uses about our material desires. So that's one point I bring to your attention. Prabhupada's given us an alternative, and he's given us a real hope for something better. And I'll refer to, maybe I'll mention it now. Yeah, I think I'll mention it now. Some of you have read, if you haven't, you should study and think carefully about the 7 purposes of ISKCON. So this is the organization that Prabhupada created. I know before I joined this call, they were playing that beautiful video, and they were reading Prabhupada's wonderful, wonderful, profound prayer that he wrote in the Boston Harbor. And in it, he's calling out to Krishna, please use me as your instrument. These people are suffering, but your message can alleviate that suffering. Please use me, empower me, help them understand my words. Let my words enter their hearts. You know, this is the vision, this is the mission of Srila Prabhupada. And in his 7 purposes, I'll just read the first one. Prabhupada says, ISKCON is meant to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large, to educate all peoples in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values. What are those imbalances of values? Thinking that, you know, unlimited money will make me happy, or power, or this, or step on your neighbor to get to the top. That's an imbalance of values. And to achieve real unity and peace in the world. That's the vision. So one reason I suggest, I advocate, I request, I beg all of you, take Prabhupada as your role model, as your leader, because of the alternative vision that he presents us. Second reason I think you should do that, because Prabhupada has wonderful qualities, a very special and saintly person. And I want to talk about that, just a few of these qualities that I've been meditating on lately. And I want to begin with the idea Prabhupada was bold. Again, I'm talking to men here, okay? Prabhupada was bold, Prabhupada was brave, Prabhupada was amazing. And he's a worthy person for us to follow and to learn from and to model our own lives after. And here's a few examples of some of those qualities, okay? So we're going to open this up a little bit. The first thing, we should follow Prabhupada because he gave us such a positive alternative. The second reason, because he himself just embodied so many wonderful qualities. And again, this could go on. You could have weeks of discussions about Prabhupada's amazing qualities and examples and the history and all the things that he did. Just a few minutes on this topic. Prabhupada was bold and Prabhupada was courageous. Again, you're men. We kind of look up to these bold, courageous people. You know, when I was a kid, I read a series of books. My favorite thing to read when I was about 10 years old, called The Hardy Boys. I don't know if you have those in India. It was all about these young boys. They were teenagers and they were solving mysteries and fighting crime and outsmarting the bad guys. And, you know, it was like, wow, I want to be exciting life like that. Look at Prabhupada, bold, courageous, and exciting. At 70 years of age, he crossed the ocean in a freighter boat. At 70. Most people at 70, they're sitting at home, you know, hoping their daughter-in-law will cook their favorite meal for dinner. Isn't it? You know, I mean, people at 70 cross the ocean. Not only cross the ocean, he had no real support once he got there. He had some unknown person in an unknown place willing to give a roof over his head for 1 month. That's it. And he had a handful of rupees. They say about $7 worth of rupees, which you could not change into dollars. So basically he didn't have a penny with him. When he landed, he had a few dollars. You know why he had a few dollars with him? Anybody remember? Because he sold, the captain of the ship bought a set of books. Prabhupada's 3-volume Bhagavatam. So he had like $15, $20. That's it. Okay. Before that, Prabhupada, when he was in Delhi and Vrindavan, he was writing his back to God. He was publishing his writing, editing, publishing, printing. selling on the streets of Delhi as an elderly person, going into tea stalls. Just walk up some stranger and sit down and start talking about God in the tea stall. Would you like to buy my magazine? I mean, how many of us are bold enough to do that even today? And if we are we bold enough we would do it if nobody else was doing it? With a magazine we printed on our own? It's phenomenal. We know, and Prabhupada, when he was trying to distribute those BTGs, he was so bold and courageous. One day he had sunstroke. It's described in the histories that he fainted in the middle of the street. It was very, very hot weather. He fainted and said if a friend hadn't come and helped him, he might have died in the middle of the street. Another time he was gored by a cow. Did he stop? He didn't stop. Did he doubt Krishna? It's described, he was asking Krishna, why exactly did you do this? What am I supposed to be understanding from this? But he didn't stop. He didn't doubt that Krishna was there to help him. And as we know, on the boat, he had heart attacks. He finally got a little place to stay in New York City after some struggle that became kind of his ashram in the poorest, most decrepit part of the biggest city in America, the Bowery. Sometimes he would have to step over dead bodies. Describe that. Sometimes the people would die and the door would be blocked and they'd have to get somebody to move this dead body out of the way. A lot of alcoholism and really, really difficult part of the city. Horrible. That's where Prabhupada was trying to preach. And his young roommate was taking drugs, and one day he went crazy. Prabhupada had to run down the stairs to get away from him. Did he run down the stairs, go to the city, go to the docks and say, Scindia ships, give me back. I want out of here now. These people are crazy. No. He thought, what should I do? He called a couple of young friends and said, can I move in with you? He moved in with a black man, an African-American man, who had been one of his friends and someone who had studied. He probably taught him some Sanskrit classes. And Prabhupada, he didn't look back. He just looked forward. Another example, Prabhupada was exciting and visionary. If you haven't read it, I would strongly encourage you, read Shamasundar's book, now 2 volumes available, one more coming, Chasing the Rhinos. Prabhupada gave that example. If you try to hunt a rhinoceros, who can criticize? Of course, we're Vaishnavas, we don't hunt, but just as an example. Who can criticize? If you try to hunt the rhinoceros, no one will criticize. It's such a huge animal. If you weren't successful, it certainly was bold. And if you are, oh my goodness, look what you've achieved. So in that book, it's just history, story after story after story of Prabhupada's boldness. I remember one comes to my mind. Shamasundar was speaking with Prabhupada. Prabhupada was saying, Shamasundar, I was thinking I could go to this place, or maybe I can go to Africa. And Shamasundar said, Prabhupada, you've already been to that place, but you haven't been to Africa yet. Prabhupada said, yes, I was thinking the same thing. Buy the tickets. This is Prabhupada. Buy the tickets. Let's go. Let's go tomorrow. Whatever. In a few days, they left there. Visionary. Prabhupada sitting on this park bench all by himself in New York City before ISKCON had been formed, before he even had the 26 Second Avenue. He's talking to some man he met on the bench, and he's telling him, there are temples. There are devotees. It's only time that separates us. He had that faith. He had that vision. That's the kind of person I want to follow. I don't want to follow somebody that stands up and says, make $1 million and you'll be happy. It's like, how many people have said that? I want to follow someone who's visionary. And what is that vision? I just gave the example of that. Those 7 purposes gives us insight and vision to create real unity and peace in the world. Come about some other qualities. Prabhupada was kind. Prabhupada was forgiving. Prabhupada was loving. Everybody wants love. And we all know in this world, sometimes that love, it's a little impure. Sometimes some selfishness is there. None of us are pure. We're trying to love and to serve our families and our friends and all that. Prabhupada, when we read Leelamrita, and I already had mentioned Chasing the Rhinos, also Leelamrita. It's printed in different versions, but I would suggest, if you have time, read the full volume. Don't just read the condensed version. You miss a lot of nectar if you just read the condensed version of that. And also, particularly, I like Mukunda Maharaj's book, Miracle on Second Avenue. Those are 3 that I particularly personally resonate with me. And they're wonderful. And we hear from these three senior devotees who've written these books. Prabhupada didn't reject anybody. He had no bias. Prabhupada didn't say, oh, I'm from Bengal, I don't want to have South Indians in my organization. Prabhupada didn't say, oh, you know, the Mahaprabhu's movement is meant for the higher class people, no low class people. Prabhupada didn't say, oh, you young people, you're taking drugs, you've got girlfriends, you eat meat. In that era, in the United States, everybody practically did those things. You know, Prabhupada could have gotten off the boat, looked around and said, this is too sinful of a place, I'm leaving. He could have got right back on the ship. He knew what he faced, but he had so much love and compassion and kindness. Prabhupada criticized scholars. We know that. And then he would meet with scholars and be a gentleman. Prabhupada criticized materialistic people, and he would meet with those people. Prabhupada criticized Mayavadi philosophers, but when Prabhupada was walking on, I think it was in Juhu, walking on the beach with his disciples one day, and they passed some sannyasis of a different order. Prabhupada was very unhappy with his disciples. He said, why you did not bow down? Why you did not pay obeisances? And they're thinking, these are Mayavadis, Prabhupada. You know, everything you say about Mayavadis and this and that. And Prabhupada, no, they're sannyasis. You must respect them. So, you know, putting aside whatever philosophical differences, Prabhupada said, no, you have to be respectful. You have to be kind to people. So many beautiful stories. One brief one I can tell, there's so many, there's hundreds, if not thousands of stories. One time Prabhupada, there was a cook was cooking for Prabhupada, and she made a mistake. She put way too much salt in. So they took it to Prabhupada, and the same thing was offered to devotees. Devotees were complaining. We can't even eat this. You offer that to Prabhupada? This is terrible. Prabhupada didn't say a word. He didn't complain. The next day, the same lady, she cooked for Prabhupada, and she was very, very careful because she understood from the devotees. Devotees complain like anything. I can't eat this. This is terrible. Prabhupada didn't complain. The next day, she cooked again, and Prabhupada said, oh, today you've cooked so nicely. Yesterday was a little salty. That's why we should follow Srila Prabhupada. Again, so many stories. Story with Shyamasundar. Prabhupada asked him, carve the Jagannath deities in San Francisco. Shyamasundar still wasn't even following strictly the regulative principles. Prabhupada came in one day, there was a pack of cigarettes sitting on the head of the unfinished carving of Lord Jagannath. And Prabhupada flicked off the cigarettes and he said, do not let such a little thing come between you and Krishna. He didn't tell him, you fool, you rascal, you idiot, this is offensive. I mean, sometimes Prabhupada was harsh or firm, I should say firm, with some of his more senior people that, you know, knew better, but especially with new people, with younger people, just ocean of kindness. And of course, even his being firm with senior people, that's also his kindness, but particularly his broad-mindedness. And then he told Shyamasundar, what did he tell him? This is an amazing story. Prabhupada told Shyamasundar, just smoke one less every day. Just smoke one less every day. He didn't tell him, if I ever see you with a pack of cigarettes again, I'll never let you live in this ashram. You're cast away from you can't carve the deed. He didn't tell him that. What broad-mindedness, what compassion. Prabhupada knows what the principles are. Prabhupada knows how harmful cigarettes are. Prabhupada knows, you know, what sinful things, intoxication and how they block. But Prabhupada also understood practical, and he understood compassion and kindness. How do I help this person make the next step towards Krishna? That's the kind of person I want to follow. That's the kind of person I suggest you follow. And also Prabhupada was so empowering. Reading these books, he was so encouraging. Like he described, he turned hippies into happies. He didn't say, oh, you're hippies, you're degraded, go away. It wasn't his vision. He turned, and you know, every society is subject to kind of hierarchies. India is not devoid of the tendency to see things hierarchical and sometimes discriminate against people on the lower social echelons. Prabhupada, you know, as far as his physical being and his culture, he came from that country. He came from that culture, but he transcended it. You know, the same thing is there in America and other places too. There's a tendency to see higher and lower and discriminate, not give people opportunities. Prabhupada gave everyone full opportunities, because that's Lord Chaitanya's mission. Okay, so that's the second reason. He's such a wonderful personality. And I'll also mention that context, he wasn't a micromanager. You read these books, Prabhupada told his disciples, just go do it. Shamasundar came with an idea, do it. Somebody wanted to, Prabhupada, I think I'd like to go to Tokyo, do it, open a temple. In one class, Prabhupada gave, he said, I want all of my disciples to open temples. And a 16-year-old girl, okay, now sometimes maybe people think, well, whatever, maybe they want to limit what women can do. Okay, it's the history of the world. Okay, a 16-year-old girl raised her hand and said, Swamiji, even the girls. Prabhupada just said, I want all of my disciples to open temples. Swamiji, even the girls. Prabhupada said, yes, why not? Even the girls. Okay, now you're young men. If he expected that, if he had faith in that, if he empowered and gave enough love to surcharge 16-year-old young women to go out and open temples, what's he got planned for you? What's he want to empower you to do? What's he expect you to do? What's he hope you to do? What's he encouraging? What is he giving you courage to do as young men? Okay? So one, he offers us a wonderful alternative to the limitations of materialistic concepts. Number two, his personal qualities, and again, we can go on for forever practically. His personal qualities are worth following. Third point, he's offering you and me, all of us, a goal, a place in the world, and a mission. And he's asking us, just as you just read that beautiful prayer he read in Boston Harbor, change the world. He's saying to each one of you, you are needed, you are valuable, you are powerful, change the world, make it a better place. And I read that statement, the 7 purposes again, I'll just note: to educate all peoples in the techniques of spiritual life, to check the imbalance of values in life, and achieve real unity and peace in the world. The Bhagavatam talks about creating a spiritual revolution in the lives of a misguided civilization, misguided population. I mean, that's a mission, Now, all of you, me, all of us, we live in a society these days also that are saying, achieve something, isn't it? Well, what are most people thinking about achieving? You ask a typical person, works in a particular corporation, got a big office on the 35th floor. What's your goal? To increase sales of our product by 2.5% over the next 24 months. Wow, nice goal. Nice goal, okay? Someone else, what's your goal? I want to have as many girlfriends as I can. Is it? We know men like that. If you don't know men like that, you're fortunate. I've known men like that. That's their meditation. I want to have as many girlfriends as I can, and I'm going to exploit as many women as I possibly can. And they lie, and they cheat, and they abuse, and that's their goal, or at least it's one of their goals. Other people, maybe a little less gross or crude. What's your goal? I want to have a bigger flat than my college roommate. I want to have a bigger position than the other guys that were in my college mates. That's my goal. He became a such and such. I want to have a better position. One time when Prabhupada was in Japan, he was negotiating the printing of Bhagavad Gita with a big Japanese publishing house, Dai Nippon. And briefly, they were sitting around this meeting discussing, and then all the senior executives left, and they had put all their business cards on the table. And this one young person, the youngest executive, he gathers up, he handed them to Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, what's your goal? Prabhupada took advantage of every minute to try to give people a little Krishna consciousness. So this young man, he took all the cards, the CEO and then the senior vice president, he put them all in a pile and his on the bottom, okay? And to answer Prabhupada's question, he took his card and he put it on top. That was his goal, okay? And these are the goals, you know. A lot of people, they want to, what's their goal? I want to promote my country above all others. I want to promote my ethnic group above all others. I want to promote my religion above all others, or my race above all others. And oftentimes it means at the expense of others. And that's their goal. And you as young men, you have a choice. You have a choice. You can make a difference. You can choose who's my role model, who's my mentors, where do I want to make a difference? And as Prabhupada said, what he's offering us is the alternative to check the imbalance in values in the world and to promote real peace and real unity. So just to summarize and make some conclusions here, and then we'll open up for questions. So hopefully there's a format allow maybe in the chat or one of the hosts can take some questions. So we'll get to that in just a few minutes. So hopefully you have some, because you are all smart people. And I want to hear from you and clarify maybe some things or hear what your thoughts are so, as well. So just to conclude, young men listening to this, you have power, you have ability to choose, you are responsible, you are able to respond. And if we're not aware of those things, we will be led down the path of life, knowingly or unknowingly, under the influence of people that do not have our best interest in mind. They may think they do, they may say they do, right? Politicians or products, right? You see the big billboards on the highway. Buy this thing, you'll be happy. Go to this place, you'll be happy. Attain this position, you'll be happy. But a thoughtful person thinks, okay, that billboard shows some really happy people. But actually, those people are smiling not because they're happy. They're smiling because they paid them to smile. Okay? And then someone thinks, okay, they're selling that product, but why are they selling that product? Because are they selling that product because they want to make me happy? Maybe. But a bigger part of it, for most people selling most products, they want to make money. They don't necessarily have my interest in mind. There are some good companies out there. There are some good products out there. There are things that we need. You know, we need better ways to, you know, improve the productivity and healthy food for all the people. And we need better, you know, metro systems in the cities. We're not decrying that. But just looking at the standpoint of people promoting aggressively that these things in and of themselves will satisfy us and our innermost needs, it's not a fact. It actually can happen. And therefore, we should use our power properly, our ability to make choices, our ability to respond in a careful way. And that begins with, back to our topic, who do I choose to look up to? You know, I personally, I remember some of you may know Peter Burwash, who's a friend of the movement, a great follower of Srila Prabhupada. One of the things he advocates to leaders is to read biographies of great people. So whose biography do we want to read? Would we want to read the biography of Robin? I know in India today, there's a lot of weird things going out there. Maybe this one's there too. You know, people rewrite the Ramayana and Robin's the hero. You can choose to read that book, you know, talk about how, you know, Robin almost won, you know, Ram, you know, whatever he says, I don't know, you know, if Ram hadn't cheated on this or that, or, you know, Robin would have won, and look, he had all the money and all the power and all the women and blah, blah, blah. And if that's the role model we choose, we can make that choice. Or we can study the great spiritual leaders, and I particularly advocate in this age, Srila Prabhupada, who we can look up to. We can follow in his footsteps, not imitate, but we can follow in his footsteps. We can try to understand his vision, understand his mission, and give our energy to that. So I suggest all of us that we should try to study the life of Srila Prabhupada deeply, as mentioned in this purport. Try to understand the principles behind what Prabhupada did. Try to understand the deep compassion and the broad-mindedness that was there, and of course the deep, deep, deep Krishna consciousness, and try to understand what Prabhupada did, the sacrifices he made for you, the contributions that he made for you, the affection that he has for you is not just some slogan. Prabhupada has deep affection for each and every one of us. And in summary, following him, why? Because one, he offers this beautiful vision and alternative. And it's not just a pie in the sky, it's coming true. We see in our own lives how by his vision, the process of Krishna consciousness he gave, we're becoming better people. It's a gradual process. It doesn't happen overnight. We can't fake it. We have to make it real. We have to deeply cleanse our hearts. So it's not like overnight we're going to become free from whatever bad qualities we have, but gradually the process works. So he gives us this vision. Two, he was an incredible person, worthy of following. And he has a mission that he's asking each of you to join, to take it up, to make it your raison d'etre, your reason for life, the thing that gives you joy. He's got a place for each and every one of us. You know, we're men and you're young men and you're looking to see, where should I put my energy? And everybody's asking you, you know, we do this, do this, do this, do that. But Prabhupada's giving us a bigger picture. He's got a better vision, an incredible person, and he's got a mission that we can make a difference. And you'll find tremendous benefits if we use our power, use our choice, use our talents to follow his example. And to realize that his mission, it's not sectarian. We have to avoid this too. The world right now, I can say I'm in my mid-60s now. I've lived long enough in the modern context to see swings come, even globally. Moods come, trends come, political forces come, social forces come, artistic and cultural forces. They come and they go and they come. And right now we are living in a time of tremendous polarization and divisiveness. Within countries, between classes, between races, between political ideologies. And Prabhupada gave us an example of something that transcends all of this. So much so that regardless of our race, our ethnicity, even our religion, our gender, our class, our educational level, that doesn't matter. In the eyes of the pure devotee, I was listening to a lecture this morning, Prabhupada, for the millionth time, was saying we're not the body. It doesn't matter where we came from, who we are externally, we have the full potential to realize Krishna and awaken our love for Krishna. And we have the full potential to bring that mission, to bring that message to the world. There's no holding back. And it's not just some nice, you know, everybody hold hands and feel good about each other. That's there too. We also feel good about each other, and we hold hands and we dance together in kirtan when we're not in COVID-19, when that goes away. For now, we'll keep our distancing. But he gives us this mission, this beautiful mission to help all people. So I'm speaking to you again as young men. You can help realize your own full potential. You can help realize your potential as spirit, soul, awakening love of God, and you can share that with others. Our full potential, as Prabhupada said, become Krishna conscious, become happy, become peaceful, and go back home, back to God and end his lifetime. That's the gift he gave to us. And all he asks, Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavatam, and he says, when one becomes a little spiritually progressed, then he wants to repay the debt to the acharya, to the mentor, to the leader, to the role model, to the for us, our founder acharya. He wants to repay that debt. And what did Prabhupada say? Repay that debt. Oh, give me a lot of money? No. Glorify me and put big statues of me? No. What did he say? By sharing this mission, by taking up that mission ourselves. That's the person I want to follow. That's the person I think we should all try to follow. And again, in conclusion, please study Prabhupada's life. Lilamrita is especially wonderful. There's many, but the three that I particularly, that for me, just personally speaking, Miracle on Second Avenue by Mukunda Maharaj, Chasing the Rhinos by Shama Sundar, and Lilamrita by Satsrup Maharaj, are particularly very, very inspiring. I'll make one final comment and then we'll open up for questions. Please don't misinterpret what I've said. Someone may be thinking, well, I'm a married man. How can I, take up this renunciation? Or I'm still a student. Are you saying I should give up my studies? Or I've got children and I can't get to the temple, again, when there's no COVID and we're free to, I can't go to the temple as much as I can because I got to watch my kids, or I need to play with my kids, or my kids are sick. Following Prabhupada's footsteps means you balance all of those things. Means you understand, if I should love my children. If you're a father and you don't love your children, you should pray to Krishna, help me love my children. And if you feel I don't love my children, then you should love your children, which means you should act out of love, which means you make sure they're cared for, make sure you show affection, make sure they have time to play and that they eat healthy prasadam, and that they, their needs are met and they've got friends. And, you don't just bring them to the temple and tell them at 7 years of age, which I've seen, sit down, shut up and listen to the lecture. You want to turn your children off to, some of you are young, you don't have families yet. If you have children, giving them Krishna doesn't mean forcing it. It means making it pleasant, making it happy for them. So whether we're grahasta, we're young, we're still students, we're workers. I'm not saying, if you work for some company, okay, maybe the company, you have to sit through meetings and they say, we want to increase the sales by 2%. You can think, yes, I'm going to help increase the sales by 2% and I'm going to do it for Krishna. And the money that I get from this profit and the working up the ladder, one of these days when I've got a leverage and I'm a department head, I'm going to try to bring some sattvic principles into our office. I'm going to make sure people learn how to respect each other. And I'm going to bring cookies from the temple for the lunchroom. And I'm not going to try to, tell people you can't be Christian, you can't be Muslim, or you got to give up whatever your family tradition is as a Hindu. I'm going to just help them add a little Krishna to their lives. And I'm going to create a spiritual environment. And if I ever make it to the point I'm actually, speaking on behalf of the company, I'm making decisions on behalf of the company, I'm going to make decisions not just based on short-term profit. I'm going to train our people. We want to think about long-term profit. We want to think about the welfare of the employees, the welfare of the environment, the welfare of the neighbors, the long-term health of this company. Not just we make a bunch of short-term profits for this, the people that own the stocks and the higher ups of the company, and we don't worry about the lower people. We don't worry about the janitors and the people that are pushing envelopes around. No, we're going to make this a spiritually focused company. That way, you're following Prabhupada. Prabhupada had a company. Prabhupada had a business. And you read the Lilamrita, and he was always talking about God. Yeah, very big company. Krishna later decided to shut it down because he had other things he wanted him to do. But it's not that we minimize our family. No, we're even more attentive to our families if we're Krishna conscious. We're even better fathers if we're Krishna, better husbands if we're Krishna conscious, better friends if we're Krishna conscious. Because we see, who's my wife? She's a servant of Krishna. Who's my friends? They're servant of Krishna. Even my boss, you may have some materialistic boss. Okay, he could be the biggest rascal in the world. Now, if he's forcing you to do sinful things, okay, you look for another job. But if he's just a little bit difficult to get along with, you bring Krishna consciousness principles into the office. They will see you're different. They will be attracted to that. They will start seeing, why don't you get upset? Things go wrong. I'm your boss. I throw temper tantrum. I get angry. My wife gets upset with me. But what's your secret? You say, you really want to know? I do a little meditation every morning. Really, what meditation? I've been meditating for years. So my mother gave me, my grandma said, no, I chant Krishna's names. Well, I can't do that. I'm Muslim. That's okay. You chant Allah's names. You just chant God's names. What else should I do? Well, you want to be healthy? Yeah, I want to be healthy. Science shows meat's not so good for you. You're right. Etc. Okay? Preaching means we also follow example. Prabhupada, when he came to North America, he lived in the house of meat eaters. Do you all know that? We hear about Butler, Pennsylvania. Those people were meat eaters. Prabhupada he stayed with them, and they gave him a little place at what's called the YMCA. Young Men's Christian Association. They also gave him shelter when he first came to America. Prabhupada would come to their home for programs at night. One night Prabhupada came a little early, and the woman, Sally Agarwal, said, Swamiji, I haven't cleaned up yet. The smell of meat must be disturbing to you. Did Prabhupada say, yes, I'm disturbed. Yes, you're nonsense. Yes, you're going to take birth so many times for every hair on the body. Did he say that? He could have. He had every right to say that. It's what the Shastra says. But he understood the principle behind it, which was these people are my hosts. These people are helping me. I want to treat them with respect. And he told her, quote, think nothing of it. And you see the videos years later, you see the videos with this woman, Sally Agarwal. She talks about her time with Prabhupada. It was only 30 days or so. She talks about it and she cries out of her love for Srila Prabhupada. What a wonderful person he was. She says it was the most wonderful, I'm not sure that's the exact word she uses. You can go back and look, but something to that effect. It was the most important, the most wonderful time of her life was when Prabhupada, or Swamiji as she called it, was living with her. That's the impact he had. That's a person I want to follow. So I'll stop there. We've got about 50, unfortunately, I only have about 15 minutes for questions because I have another Zoom commitment after this. So I don't know the organizers, how you want to handle the questions, but we've got about 12, 15 minutes. And if you ever want, I'd be happy to come back and we can explore these things more in the future. But let's see if we can take some questions. So
yes, thank you very much, Prabhuji, for such a wonderful class and also spending your time with us. With your permission, I just want to take few questions. So we got near about 5 to 6 questions. The first question, it came from Venkatesh Prabhu, and the question was, I am taking Srila Prabhupada as a role model, but not following his instructions strictly. Can you please help me in this regard, Prabhu?
yes, keep trying. Don't give up. I'm also following Srila Prabhupada as a role model, and I'm not following so strictly. Prabhupada said so many things. If we strictly follow, then we've got to be pure devotees. And we're free from lust, anger, greed, envy, laziness, all those different things. So do the best you can. Krishna is your very, 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 very best friend. Think of your very best friend in all of life, whether you knew him when you were 5 years old or 15 years old or 20, your very best friend who truly loves you and cares for you. Krishna is that person times 1 billion. And he's in our heart and he wants to help us. So you just do the best you can. And every day you make a commitment. Today I'm going to try to do a little bit better. If you make a mistake, again, we're men, we're responsible. We're not just men, we're spirit souls. We're in men's bodies. Please don't misinterpret what I'm saying about being men. We're spirit souls in men's bodies, so we can use it, right? So we're human beings. We have the ability to make choices. So when you make a mistake, stop and think, what did I do wrong? Be a little self-critical. Okay, I could have done better. Not that we, start thinking badly of ourselves, but okay, I made a mistake. I lost my temper. Next time this comes up, here's what I'm going to do differently. So in the same way, we may fall short. As we learn things, you try to apply that and every day do a little bit better and never give up. Next question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhu. The next question came from Banu Prakash Prabhu, and he is asking, like, sometimes whenever he is aspiring some goal materially, at that time he is running behind the goal so passionately that he is not following Krishna consciousness properly. And sometimes whenever he is working for the material goal, he is understanding that I should not follow all this goal because my Krishna consciousness is coming down. So he is asking how to come out from this conflict, and also is it good to have some material goal in our life while we are practicing Krishna consciousness?
That's a whole bunch of questions rolled into one. Let me first of all say those are very good questions. Those are very honest and practical questions. Those are the kind of questions we need to ask to become Krishna conscious. How do I do this? I'm living in a very materialistic world. How do I maintain Krishna consciousness? So one is, it's a question of trying to find balance. How do I, and that doesn't come automatically. Sometimes we have to practice that. And you just test and you see what's working, what's not working. And so one, you practice and you test and you see what works. You remain a little self-critical, like I said. Very important thing, you make sure as a priority, you never give up the association of devotees. And you ask devotees, and it doesn't necessarily mean, the spiritual master or, a senior sannyasi, just some person you have some faith in that you can have a little more regular contact with to give you advice. And you ask them, please, you guide me. If you see I'm, stepping out of line now and then, please remind me to come back. And it does require a balance. Okay. I mean, okay, I'm a GBC member, and, I had a business for 25 years. I tried to offer more than 50% of the profits to ISKCON for the years that I could. Now I'm, a little more kind of a Nevada Prasta stage in life. I still got to wash my car. I live in America, you got to have a car. So yesterday I went and I washed my car. And it's a little bit, my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I can wash them myself for like $10, or I can pay to have them wash it for $20. And maybe I'm not going to make the right decision, but okay, Krishna, I think I'll do it this one time and pay more so I'll have a cleaner car so that I'll feel better. I can think of you and serve you better. Yeah, do the best you can. Is that? But if I start realizing, maybe I shouldn't just wash the car. I think I'm going to like detail the car. Maybe I'll pay $150 so they'll clean every little nook and cranny. And maybe I should buy a special fancy new fender for the car. And maybe I should put some lights that flat. The next thing, where's Krishna? Where's Krishna? So Prabhupada said, simple living, high thinking. That's the principle. Again, you're smart, you're young, you're responsible. You think that in mind. Okay, what's the principle? How do I balance making a commitment to work and keeping my Krishna conscious? So the boss says, we'd like to give you a promotion, and you can take on this job and you can stay in the city, and you think, okay, that's pretty good because I can still go to the temple. Just as an example, the boss says, we're going to send you to Iceland, and you do some research. There's no devotees. There's no temple. You can't buy any vegetarian food. I'm sure you can. I'm sure it's a great place. But just an example. So maybe you say, I'm not going to do that. That's too much material activity. It's going to harm my spiritual activity. But similarly, you're a young man. You have an opportunity. If you work in a company, make a lot of money. Climb to the top and use your influence for Krishna. But be careful along the way. Or if you're more inspired to say, look, I'm happy where I am. I can go to the temple. I can be with the devotees. I can focus on my kids. Do that. Just make sure Krishna is the key part of what you're doing as much as possible, and you'll be safe. I can only speak in terms of principles because I can't give you details because all your situations vary. But I gave you a real simple example of myself, and just to apply that as best you understand. And ask your friends, hey, is this crazy? I mean, I've got a couple friends I call up when I have to make decisions. What do you think is best for me? And I really value their help. Okay, next question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhu. The next question came from Ramananda Prabhu, and he's asking, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, how to remember Srila Prabhupada throughout the day, and how to develop faith that he will come to protect me daily?
Yes, it comes through hearing. It comes through hearing. You have to read about Prabhupada. You have to hear from Prabhupada. There's thousands of lecture tapes, I think, at least hundreds. So, every day we can try to listen to a lecture of Srila Prabhupada. Now you can get them online. You can get so many different formats of there. So we have to associate with Prabhupada. We have to hear from Prabhupada. Reading Prabhupada's books, of course, is essential. And we have to also, I strongly recommend reading about Prabhupada from these other people. Again, I'm rereading the Leela Amrita now, probably the 10th time, the 12th time. And I'm pulling out all these little things that I never remembered from the first time around. So every time you go back, you go deeper and deeper. And then gradually you start seeing Prabhupada's presence, in part because you read something about how Prabhupada acted in a particular way. And then during the day, you think back on that, and then you act in a similar way in your circumstance. And you start feeling Prabhupada guiding you more and more in that way as well.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Due to lack of time, I will take the last question. And this is asked by His Grace Kaliya Krishna Das Prabhu. And the question is, Hare Krishna Prabhu, we get inspired by Srila Prabhupada, but may get discouraged by few situations we face with our immediate authorities. In this condition, should we follow them or to move ahead separately from them? Does our society allow this?
Okay, that's a very deep question. Again, I'm going to have to speak in terms of principles. Um, Point one, there will always be reasons to be discouraged. The body discourages us. The weather discourages us. You know, sometimes our families for a certain time may discourage us. Our mind, I don't know about all of you, my mind is always discouraging me. It's taking away my courage. It's telling me why I can't do this and why I can't do that. And it's making me meditate on this negative thing and this negative thing. There's always discouragements. Prabhupada faced unlimited number of discouragements, but he never gave up. Prabhupada repeatedly, again and again and again and again and again, tried to work with his god brothers, with his spiritual masters institution, and he always did so. He always did so. In ISKCON, although we know there were some serious issues arose with the Gaudiya Math, even today we still want to be friendly. We want to be respectful. We keep our little distance for different reasons in certain situations, but we still want to be respectful. So as a general principle, I would say Prabhupada said we should cooperate. That's the first thing we should try. We should try to understand what's the mood of my authority. How do I work with their mood? How do I work in such a way that can contribute to the good of the community or to the temple? That's the first thing we should try. If we're having difficulty, we should try to seek advice of others. I'm having trouble, my Sankirtan leader or this person is making it a little difficult for me. Help me understand how we can get along better. Okay, or how I can maybe not let it bother me. I've worked with authorities that were pretty difficult in my time. And sometimes I've just seen, okay, Krishna, what a wonderful opportunity to become humble. What a wonderful opportunity to realize that I'm not in control. And what a wonderful opportunity to try to serve you in the midst of a lot of difficulties. You please help me do so, okay? Now, if it ever crosses the line, if a spiritual leader or someone any responsible person in leadership, if they really cross the line where something's becoming, abusive or harmful or really, really, really negative, within ISKCON, there's avenues, there's higher authorities. You go to the regional supervisor, or you go to, if the department head, you go to the president. If the president, you go to the regional supervisor. There's something called ISKCON Resolve, which means how to resolve problems. If we don't have that so widespread in India, I really suggest try to help create that system. And it's a long topic, but basically it means I can go to someone anonymously and say, Kaliya Krishna was really treating me in a bad way, and I don't know what to do about it. And these people will talk to, I'm just pulling his name down. I don't mean to dishonor him, just as an example. And these other people, respected leaders, they'll talk to Kaliya Krishna and they'll say, we've heard there's this problem. You're a little harsh, or you're not empowering people, without revealing who I am, anonymously, and try to work out the love of the problem that way. So we are a global organization meant to solve global problems, which means we need first-class systems and structures in place. And when those aren't there, again, we should be cooperative, we should be humble. If we can't work it out on our own, we should talk and get some peers to help us. If that doesn't work, we should go to higher authorities, maybe go to ISKCON Resolve. And in certain rare circumstances, I mean, if somebody is really violating, somebody's, again, abusing, you have to report that. I'm a GBC. You see me abusing a child, you call somebody right now, okay? You see me abusing my wife, you call somebody right now. You see me physically abusing a brahmachari, some other devotee under my authority in a serious kind of a way, not just I'm a little mean one day. We all lose our tempers. We all can be mean, in a systematic way. There's patterns. You report that as part of your duty. Now, that doesn't mean you don't like me and you just go online, you tell the whole world, Anuttama's a rascal, he's a fool, he's this, he's that. I mean, that's an offense. I mean, even to me, a fallen person, you shouldn't even offend a fallen person like myself. What to speak of Vaishnavas? But if you see something seriously wrong, and you talk to a couple other people and they have a similar experience, then it's your duty. We can't tolerate those types of things. But in the ordinary case, there's differences in personality, this and that. You try to work it out through the system. And worst case scenario, once in a while, Prabhupada said, you know, you ask for a transfer. You know, you go to a different, I can't work with this head Pujari. Can you help me? Can I please work in the kitchen? You know, I can't work in this temple. Can I please work in that temple? You know, I can't work in this ashram with this group of brahmacharis. Can I please work with that brahmachari? But I would suggest in some situations, you're going to find even when you get transferred to that other ashram, you have the same problems with those people. Not always. Not always. Sometimes we do need to move and transfer and there's problems outside ourselves. But a lot of the times we realize, you know, the problem really was with me. Again, not always, but start there. What can I do to improve the situation? Okay, my authority is a little angry and bitter and a little harsh. Okay, maybe I can become a little more humble. Now, again, if it becomes a pattern and it really becomes something that crosses the line, that's different. But let's start with seeing what can I do my own self to make my own self better, make sure I'm not contributing to the problem. Maybe I say things or do things that irritate them. Maybe they ask me to do a little something I don't want to, and then it causes a whole ripple effect in our relationship. So, you know, let me see what I can do first. So with that, I think you had a few more questions, but I don't want to break my promise to this other call. So I'll take your leave. And I want to thank Kishore Sham Prabhu, who was the one that initially was helping set this up. Thank you very much, Kishore Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I am offering my respectful obeisances unto your dust of your lotus feet, Prabhu.
Yes, and I offer my humble respect.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kishore. But I do need to drop off, okay? So thank you very much.
Thank you.
If the opportunity arises in the future, if there's any desire, I'd be more than happy to come back, and you know, every few weeks or a few months or whatever you see appropriate, I'd be very happy to connect with all of you again.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. We are very pleased and happy to invite again and again, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Prabhu. I request everybody to unmute yourself and chant 3 times Hari Bol for Prabhuji. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol!
Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol!
Anuttama Prabhu ki jai.
Later, maybe you can send me the link. I know you recorded. If you can,
yes.
Place and send me the link, I'd appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah, sure, bro. Sure.
Okay.
So I end. On behalf of ISKCON Tirupati, we are really very much grateful that you have shared your time and all the experience and knowledge with us, bro. Thank you very much.
Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki jai. Balaji Maharaj.
Jai.
Ki jai.
Jai.
Okay, Kalia Prabhu, I think Prabhuji left. And sorry to other devotees, because of lack of time, I was not able to take your questions. It was not like something personal or something. So whatever